do we have a champion? Like I'm asking the teams, who's our champion? Well, it's this person. Who's our EB? Oh, it's this person in procurement. Are you sure it's that person in procurement? Like, why? Well, it's because we're negotiating the contract with them. So yeah, you're smirking. But again, just the basics around, hey, what is the pain? What is the business problem that they're solving? And have we captured meaningful evidence that we are solving that pain for them?
Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show takes guests in the barrel, behind the scenes with the people who've been there, done that, and seen the results. Revenue Builders covers best practices for scaling and growing your business while sharing the pitfalls to avoid. Today, we sit down with Seong Park, Senior Vice President of Customer Support and Services at Cursor. Cursor, as you know, is a rocket ship founded by 4 MIT students just 4 years ago. The company closed a $2.3 billion Series D and recently surpassed $1 billion in annualized recurring revenue. More than 1 million developers use the platform every day. Seong comes to Cursor after an extensive career leading customer teams, including leadership roles at Palo Alto, Chronosphere, Lacework, and MongoDB. In this episode, Seong brings a perspective shaped by his pre-sales, customer success, and enterprise go-to-market roles. The team talks value realization, how to make customer success the revenue engine in a consumption-based SaaS environment, and why today's most successful CS teams are made up of strategic consultants, not account managers. The one truth in this conversation: the fundamentals of pain, champions, outcomes, and evidence still matter, even as the speed of execution changes. Let's get started.
So, Seong, maybe you give us a little overview of like how you started and how you ended up where you are today as a Senior Vice President of Customer Support and Services for Cursor.
One of the hottest companies on the planet right now.
Red hot.
Red hot. Congrats.
Well, first of all, John and John, thank you for having me. This is like super, it's an honor, right? Just because I think John, like you and I go back probably about 20 years, if I'm like doing the math correctly.
Yeah.
I'll share a funny story about that in a second, but like my background is pre-sales. So I was born into kind of the go-to-market piece really around B2B enterprise sales, where there was no cloud, there was no open source, there was no SaaS. So you had to talk to someone in order to actually buy some software.
Right.
And I happened, yeah. So, and for me, pre-sales ended up being kind of a really great introduction to go-to-market because it forced people to really understand that there are business problems that are solved by technology. And I think, you know, the thing that drew me most was in pre-sales, you get to marry the two. So, you know, forward a few years. And then, you know, I landed into MongoDB with, you know, one of the best CROs, arguably, that I've worked with, also Carlos Del Torre, right? So, like, obviously, you both know
Great
him.
man. Great guy.
And yeah, it was my first foray into really open source, SaaS, building out things that, again, were not necessarily very clear at the time. And there were definitely quarters and, you know, periods of time where just existentially we're like, hey, are we actually going to make it? But it was very eye-opening because I think in pre-sales, you learn how to build some of the interpersonal skills. You build great discovery. You build all the things that are going to be paramount for you to really understand the customer's pain. And then figure out what are the best ways for me to position this solution or this thing that I have that can potentially solve that pain, and do it in a meaningful enough way that says, Seong, I've seen enough, I've heard enough, I'm confident you can solve this pain for me. Let's go do this. Fast forward now to consumption businesses. I think it really forces companies to really re-earn kind of the revenue through usage and value realization. It's kind of this referendum on, hey, like, what have you done for me lately? Right? And like, are you actually delivering some type of meaningful, quantifiable business value? And I think in kind of the B2B enterprise, like SaaS, even up through SaaS, like you could hide not having value for years, right?
Well,
And
at least, you know, 11 months
months.
out of the 12.
Yeah, yeah,
And with perpetual, you could definitely hide for years.
yeah, exactly.
And
And
CS at that time was really break fix. People essentially waited until something broke at the customer and then they tried to fix it. It was not reactive, it was totally reactive. With subscription, to your point, it at least started to get to be somewhat proactive because you had to fix the guy's issue and make sure that they realized value at least by 9 or 10 months into the deal.
100%. And I think the telemetry, the data, everything that's available now in a consumption-based business, it just exposes the truth. Like, are we really getting value out of this thing that we're now paying a lot of money for? And, I'm here at Cursor and it's like bonkers the velocity and scale in which that even exposes how much more relevant you have to be and how much more you have to be very precise about showcasing business value. I know Brian McCarthy was on before.
Yes.
He talked about the moat that he's building, which is really sales, right? And the sales team and the go-to-market team here. And I think for us, it really comes down to, well, hey, like anyone can kind of show the telemetry and deliver like a capability and a feature set and a platform. But I think it really exposes, especially in the enterprise market, how much more you have to build and re-earn and like I'll just say earn the customer's business every day in a consumption based model.
Right, because it's like a light switch, right? If they don't like what you have to offer and they're not realizing value, they don't have to wait. They can turn the light switch off and turn somebody
Right.
else's light switch on and try them to see if they're going to give them value.
Right.
And
And and and
you may be gone. You're gone right away. Never
and
going
the
back.
reality of the world we're in right now is you're guaranteed that customer environment. I knew they were going to come in and turn on the light at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they're going to kind of dim the light at 10 or whatever. Now, new opportunities. AI has created people that are doing things faster than they've ever done before. That light switch can be going on and off, or going on and staying on, and I think, and I'd love for your perspective on this. You need now more than ever to have great telemetry, great insights, great onto what customers are doing. Because what they're doing today is vastly different to what they were doing. I used to say a year ago. I can say now a month ago, a week ago. Is that fair?
Oh, completely. And I think, yeah, go on, John. You were gonna.
But I was just going to ask, you're responsible for this value realization, or I like to call it value creation, value capture, but I like your value realization. What does that do to a realization world, which is backed by consumption? And then obviously everybody's talking about outcomes. I'd love to hear what the reality is right now.
Yeah. And by the way, just as a nod to force management and command of the message and value framework, right? We make promises in the sales stages around some pain that we've identified jointly with a customer that we can meaningfully solve for in a way that results in positive business outcomes, right? If we do that really well, then that value realization ends up being just kind of execution, right? After land. And what I mean by that is easy words to say, but it's really, really hard to make sure that you're tracking whatever those business outcomes are, because oftentimes, especially I think in a fast moving environment, you kind of root on sometimes surface level metrics. Hey, we've saved your developer, hundreds of hours of time. So now they're more productive. Well, then so what? Like, what did that actually mean to the business? So you have to, again, do great discovery and make sure that you are being inquisitive and curious and making sure you can draw that attribution to the PBO or to the positive business outcome. I think the other thing too then is how do you meaningfully balance what you're trying to find from a discovery perspective, but also showcase, hey, here are all the things that we can add maybe additional value to you, right? And I think that's the trick, is like constantly doing this like give and take around discovery to make sure that, hey, let's uncover more pain, but also let's uncover where we can find some really well validated, quantified metrics in hard dollars, right? That we can actually capture as evidence of value.
And
So
isn't the ultimate measure right now, Seong? Feels like the ultimate measure, and this has not been easy to do, is whether or not the end user says, if you unplug it, I'm dead.
yeah,
And that today is a new metric for me. If you unplug Cursor or whoever, if they don't identify, a lot of times we used to like to be, and Cursor, I think, is going to be like to be in the background a little bit and just, you don't even know we're there and we're doing it, right. And now, what pressure does that put on your organization when the metric is CFO saying, if I turn it off and nobody screams, then I know I've made a good decision. What kind of challenges does that create for you right now?
It's a huge challenge because the space is so new and nascent. A lot of, our competitors are going to be doing AI generated code, period. That's kind of the tip of the spear in terms of a software development lifecycle or product development lifecycle. So if you're only focused there, then switching costs is very low. You can use something else versus Cursor. I'm not going to mention competitors, but I think everyone knows what they are. So the trick is to make sure that we, again, seek to understand what a customer's workflows are. How do they actually go from idea, from design, all the way through this development lifecycle and produce something at the end of it that is going to be production code, a production app that, again, ties to some revenue stream or some line of business that, again, you can equate and quantify in terms of dollars, right? So the magic's there. You want to make sure you're fully embedded in that lifecycle, a la, workflows, but you're also attaching to, the lighthouse projects or the key initiatives that are going to be paramount to that company's like revenue stream or to their competitive moat themselves, right? I mean, if you do all those things, then great, you've become almost embedded and sticky, and there's an operational like dependence, right, on us for their core revenue, right? And I think that's the trick is like stay away from the high level, the harbor tour, hey, everyone can do this like AI generated code stuff, but go really deep and embed yourself in terms of understanding the customer's workflow, how they actually create software and get plugged in that way.
You said that really well. Well done.
Yeah, you make it sound easy too, but at the end of the day, for people that are listening, to continue to sell like that, you have to constantly go through, I'm going back to what you said previously, you have to constantly go through that discovery process.
Right.
You have to build trust. You have to gain credibility so that you can influence the customer. If you haven't built trust and gained credibility, you're not going to be able to influence the customer to embed you in any of their other processes.
1,000%. And John, you kind of started off the question, like, what does CS look like today?
Yeah.
Customer success is very much, I think it got a bad rap. I mean, even when I started in CS, and by the way, fun fact, my first like real CS job was coming out of MongoDB, technically, joining a company called ThoughtSpot, where Brian McCarthy and JP Bolin and a bunch of other great sales leaders were there. That's kind of my first shot at doing this full end-to-end. I had this dream, right, that, hey, we can go from selling stages, these promises, and deliver on those promises. So had a bit of a bad rap where it was always like, you're an account manager, you might do some commercials, you push some like paper around for the renewal, and you really don't have credibility or depth in kind of the product or the space, and you have to call in people from product or from pre-sales or from services in order to like answer a simple question that the customer just has to like, hey, just show me, am I doing this right? Or I just want to know how I can leverage your thing to solve this problem. And I think the CS professional of today is part like consultant. It's almost like a McKinsey consultant, right? To go like really understand the nuance of the business. They have to have technical depth and breadth. So I would also argue having some credibility on the technology and the space, super important, because anytime there's something new and nascent, customers are so hungry for, hey, give me a little bit of prescription. How should I do this thing? And oh, by the way, John, like, how's my competitor doing this thing? Right. And I think you have to also have that just-in-time ability to answer those questions. And I'll say, again, just like seeking to understand, just having that natural curiosity and that inquisitiveness makes you super powerful, because enterprise customers also operate in silos. And there's this very well understood dynamic that I've learned that, large companies actually don't talk to each other, right? So you end up being kind of this information broker. It's like, oh, well, hey, this business unit's doing it this way, and here's kind of the gains and things that are happening there. And then this other one's like, well, how's, so-and-so doing this? And it allows you to kind of be this information broker that gives you also access to information that, again, helps you fill out kind of that big picture story about understanding, again, how your customer makes money and how you can materially impact that. So I think, the CS professional, I'll say, because it comes in many different, acronyms and flavors. We call them AI deployment managers here. Some
Mm.
companies call them technical account managers, customer success managers, customer success architects. It's really kind of evolved to the point where you have to be almost like a therapist to a customer, like really seek to understand their problem and pain. You have to be an expert in the field, right? Or in the space. And again, drive a lot of prescription and drive, or at least have a point of view. And then you also have to be very consultative in terms of, okay, again, taking the business pain and then taking a technology solution and kind of marrying the two together to have this like beautiful outcome that's again measured in some type of business outcome dollars, right? At the end of the day.
But don't you
So,
also have to have, it also sounds like you have to have a little bit of salesperson inside of you.
Oh,
You have to be an expert. You have to be, like you said, a little bit of a consultant, but you also have to branch out to these other departments. You have to be a little bit of a salesperson too. I
so
no, I
want to
was going to
stay
say
on this
everyone's in sales.
profile because it's
I'm
changed
on.
so much in the
Yeah,
last
I'm on the
year or two.
profile because when you think about what we're talking about here, we come to the conversation with this. There's some type of pre-sales work, and
Right.
then there's some type of handoff for post-sales. And I think that's like horse buggy whips, right? Like that doesn't exist now. No customer's digging that. Nobody buys that way now. You can't set up to do that. So are we looking for a
Mm.
superhuman? We're on Johnny's question on the profile. Are we looking for, do we need two people, two organizations? Is it too much to expect that we have a technical athlete and then somebody that's good in discovery or what have you? What are your thoughts on that? Where is this going?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about that, so many ways to talk about this, John. There's definitely is it a single unicorn person that does everything?
Right.
Arguably, no. I mean, these are typically, again, talking about enterprise customers, like complex, like you have to sell high, you have to sell wide. It takes a team, an account team to do this. I've always thought about this ebbing and flowing of functional roles throughout the customer journey and throughout the sales like process. Because in reality, land and expand was kind of used in SaaS. Like, oh yeah, you land and then you kind of expand with additional SKUs, like things that you can sell and upsell, right? You drive a lot of NRR with a customer, et cetera. But like, what's our goal as a business? You want to acquire a customer and keep them,
Yeah.
right? And I think in now the AI kind of era, especially in the AI space, the lands happen very easily. Like JP Bolin and I were actually talking about this a few weeks ago. Like there's a concept of an AI champion, someone who has on their back this responsibility to go and like, hey, we've got to figure out an AI strategy for my team, for my business, for my company. So guess what? I'm going to go look at all the different tools and offerings that are out there, Cursor being one of them. So what's our job? I mean, we can easily get the land, like, hey, we're going to go look at Cursor and we're going to like make it available to our developers. But guess what? The selling actually starts at that moment, the true selling. And what I mean by that is not to, again, take away or diminish what the sellers do here, because there's obviously a lot that they're doing, but I'm just talking in the context of the customer journey. The selling starts the minute they sign the contract, because guess what? There are other competitors that also have deals. And now it's a knife fight where we have to go and like do the land grab, but also, again, embed ourselves in those workflows, build champions, curate champions, make sure that we're finding out pains in the business and attaching to those pains in meaningful ways. It's a lot of work, right? So to kind of go back to the profile of person, you absolutely need someone who can sell, but it's not a single person. I think the AE plays a huge role throughout kind of that customer journey. We call them field engineers, but the pre-sales team also has, I think, a huge role. But like for customer success, we're talking about how do we drive awareness? How do we drive, kind of the enablement and the education of what Cursor can actually do for them. And then more importantly, apply that to our understanding of what their workflows are, what their environment looks like, how their devs work. So like that's the work, right? And I think that then means back to the profile, you have to have someone who's again going to be kind of part pre-sales, part AE, also someone who's going to be kind of the expert that can drive kind of that long term or the long tail of that experience for the customer.
What about
Yeah.
that AI champion you're talking about
Yeah.
as it relates to, I'm just going to play the other side of it. I'm a CFO. I don't want an AI champion going out there and signing up 15 different AI companies because I got security issues. It's going to get sticky into workflows. So it sounds like it's going to, by the very nature of things, customers are going to try to push you into pilots.
Always.
So, okay, so now even more, it sounds like to me that our ability to really qualify, not just getting them to sign up, because it can stay in an AI lab for a
Mm.
while, because I would think that you guys got to get it sticky, you got to get it into something that impacts the business, it's got to be a critical workflow, blah, 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 all the stuff you just said. Tell me about the challenges of that as it relates to, the go-to-market experience, even, pre-sales and post-sales.
Yeah. The former way of selling um, rewarded certainty,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
If you think about where we are in kind of the AI era, we're actually more rewarded on curiosity, on experimentation, um, workflow discovery. How do we like manage all these things in a way that, again, is going to be kind of unique to each customer? And that's what I mean by the real sale starts after the signature, right? Because
Yeah.
then you get exposure to all the inner workings of a customer. So it's kind of like our responsibility to, again, understand those things and help them drive the experimentation, help them drive their own kind of curiosity to figure out, hey, what does the shape of our engineering team look like? What does our workflow kind of materially change, right? Because instead of spending the majority of their time doing coding, guess what? That gets compressed because you've got tools that almost remove all that like work that developers have been doing, but it gets pushed out into other areas of that development lifecycle. It's change management, right? For decades, we've been talking about change management with digital transformation, application modernization. This is yet another flavor of it, but it happens at such a velocity and scale that I think it's kind of a free for all right now. Because if you think about customers trying to figure out their own strategies on how to be more AI native, you have on one extreme, right? We have a customer who's got, tens of thousands of engineers. There's a mandate to go and basically use as many tokens, unlimited tokens, to go and build, right? And then you have customers who are doing this thing called like token maxing, where it's like, hey, no budget, just go, right? Until finance steps in and says, hey, John, what are you guys doing over there? And then you've got other customers who are just kind of dipping their toes in the water and looking around the room and seeing like, hey, what is that company doing? And should I just kind of follow suit? So it's a wide spectrum of, again, customers that just, again, are looking for help and guidance. And I think that's the moat that we build, is how do we drive this like partnership that, again, we experiment together. We drive this, again, this very almost like a joint discovery session. And
You
then
guys
also
are guides, you're Sherpas.
exactly. And then we
Yeah.
come out of this thing with like hopefully something great that like moves the needle forward for that customer in terms of them shortening times for design to production for whatever app, right, that they're building. And I think that's the magic, right? Because we have the ability to like have a front row seat to it, but also an ability to like materially impact and change almost fundamentally how a customer and a company does business.
Going back to value realization, it used to be that when you sold to an account, because you sold to that account first, you could lock that account down substantially and keep the competition out. But to your earlier point, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing in a lot of these bigger accounts, and they could have your competition in that account. And if you can't realize value for them pretty quickly, chances are, the competition will find a way to get you out of there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a knife fight.
Go back to the profile though. Where are you finding these people? Because these people didn't exist before. So where are you finding them? You finding like tech guys that have like some sales characteristics inside them? You're probably certainly not finding sales guys that are technical experts at this, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is a fair bit of technical depth and expertise you need, right?
Yeah.
So you find them. I mean, we've had success with a few product managers that have kind of made the shift to go to market, right? Where they've been working in the domain and learning. Obviously, they're coming from a very credible space and are open to learning and being coached up on account management and kind of the soft skills, exception handling, competitive positioning. Obviously, we're putting a lot of investment and time into this transformation team that JP's running, which is going to, again, change fundamentally sales process and methodology, our qualification frameworks, but also how we differentiate, how we message and position. So I think that's going to come as a very good investment. Looking at pre-sales people, right? Because again, that is a very easy evolution. They just have to kind of grok the change that, hey, I'm no longer like core sales team. I'm like part of this like other customer success function. So they have to kind of remove any bias or any like type of preconceived notion that, oh, CS is bad, because we pay well here too, by the way. And then there's this like, oh, the real challenge is like the minute the customer signs, how do we do this long tail of all this work that is actually not that dissimilar from what you're already doing today? Right. So I guess by the time this airs, I'll have, one of the leaders here, who you both know, Frank Lamprey, is coming over to run,
Okay, great. Great guy.
one of the functions. Yeah, Frank's amazing, right? He's probably one of the best pre-sales leaders, but he's like, hey, this totally makes sense. I want to try this thing. But more importantly, I know he can do this thing because like it was an easy kind of evolution. I have another pre-sales leader coming from, well, he was at MongoDB and was at Google, Tosin Ajayi, but he's also someone that's going to help run kind of the technical solution architect team that sits in customer success. But guess what? It's kind of like pre-sales in disguise in some ways. So, find a lot of talent that way. Also, customer success architects, professional delivery, again, consultants, management consultants who, again, have this kind of AI native like mindset are also very, I think, good fits for the role.
And I'm gonna put a little plug out there for people that are listening to this and going, I'm not any of those. What the fudge? So let's just settle down for a second because the more that things change, the more they stay the same. And let me just give some spirit. I believe, and I think Brian even said this, that the greatest sellers on the planet have always been the one that have had one foot in technical capabilities. And whether I have those technical capabilities or not, it's about the customer's technical capabilities. And it's the it's the company, Cursor's responsibility to educate me on the technical problems and challenges and to give me dialogue so I can have one foot in this technical world. And my job as a seller is to connect that technical world to business outcomes. And before, people are like, yeah, I do that. But I could stay in IT and sell a technical solution with some good, post-sales people and we do a deal. Now with consumption and outcome-based pricing, now it's going to be, not only do I have to attach it to the positive business outcomes, like you said, so I have to have my foot in the technical and the business world, but I also have to understand their specific workflow. And that is the skill. If I'm talking to people out there, if you don't understand workflow and you don't understand how these people are using your solutions or currently using their own, that's where I'd spend some time. Company owes you the knowledge about the technical. They owe you the knowledge about how to connect it to a business outcome. Your job is to understand what that workflow looks like. And I've just found I'm giving sellers a lot of spirit because, listen to this. They'll be like, well, I'm not a McKinsey person. I didn't come from a technical, but if you really analyze it, it's getting back to really good basics. And also the companies out there, you don't want to be hunting for unicorns. You want to take the real savages and you want to make sure that they have the right arrows in their quiver. And I think, by the fact that you hired JP Boland, that's exactly what he's probably looking to do. Is that correct?
That guy's okay. He kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
right?
He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Well done.
Hey, so let's go talk about consumption now a little bit, from the customer's perspective. So for years they've demanded, like, I need a consumption model because I only want to pay when I use the software. And now they're using the hell out of it. And they're coming back saying, hey, I need some cost predictability because the bills are so high. I even heard, one company say that the token usage that they're using is 3x the cost of the developer themselves, right? So have you already seen that it's a struggle for some customers where they're trying to balance cost predictability and the usage and outcome of the product?
Yeah, 1,000%. I think the consumption model makes a lot of sense, but it's also, I think I realized, John, it's in disguise, this like operational dependency that's like needed again, because And what I mean by that is, I think there's an element of a consumption model makes sense. I can go use as much as I need. It keeps businesses honest, but also us very honest. Like, hey, is this all this money that we're spending? Is it like realized in like some tangible value that's being delivered? So that's kind of the first thing. I think the second thing too is like some companies seem to be okay, maybe spending a little bit more because they're again trying to navigate and figure out what their strategy is. But I think as sellers, as like a go-to-market team, um, it gives us a real opportunity to again drive some prescription around, hey, here's how you need to think about this. Here's how other companies are doing it. And it's an opportunity for us to again unpack like, well, why are you trying to spend all this money? Because at the root of it is you want to come up with some value driver, right? Hey, we want to get to market faster. We want to reduce our risk. We want to drive some competitive advantage, right? All the things that, again, John, to your point, like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Like, why are companies actually going through this pain of change and like spending all this money? And that's kind of my point. It's like, hey, the faster we can get them from this exploration, experimentation thing to showing them how we can materially impact how they can compress, product time from idea, design to delivery, right? That's kind of what it is in its simplest form. Now, to do that's really hard. Like that's the work. But I think if you think about and have the CS teams and the account teams like think through that, then it maybe becomes a little simpler, right? And kind of digestible chunks to go execute.
No, I think that's really important, giving them the big picture of what's the business outcome. Okay, so maybe it costs you 3x in tokens to get this product out the door, but you got the product out the door 3 months earlier, and because you're out 3 months earlier, you captured this much more of the market, and because of that market share, it equates to $100 million, and that's where you got to play. If you just lost in the fact that it cost them 3x on tokens, you're not going anywhere.
I think what you guys are talking about is exactly the vulnerability that sales teams are going to have on if you do not consciously play the long game with these customers and with these workflows, you're going to be at risk because, my point is if you start and you're talking to the customer about, hey, this is the problem that you can solve, and everybody gets excited about it. And think about how many of us were brought up on the promise, you said it, the certainty, the proof points of being able to do it somewhere else could get me enough to buy this product. But now the success of whether or not they keep the product or whether or not they consume the product has got to be in that full thought in the sales cycle. You can't just win on the technical requirements anymore, because those technical requirements that became, think about it, when people used to do framework song, we'd do a framework with you guys like once a year. We change it, twice, 2 times a year at MongoDB. Today, that technical framework for you at Cursor is probably changing weekly, realistically. And so you have to understand that, who's really consuming this. This is what I really love about AI today. The business is demanding. They don't understand AI. They don't understand like everything that it takes. They're hearing 10 times faster, 10 times productivity, and that's what I want. I want innovation and I want speed. They're not considering security and all the things, and we know the problems that happen there. But what they, like as a seller, if you don't take the long game and connect it all the way down to the line of business that's going to say, if you shut that off, I'm going to scream. Like we could say that happened like in SaaS, we could say, but now I think it's mandated. You have to have those examples. Am I on the right page or no?
You're totally on the right page. And if you look at even just the mechanics and like the heuristics of our business, we have customers, again, just for context, we had our first enterprise renewal in October of last year, just months ago, right? And then 2 quarters ago, we had about, 20 or so-ish enterprise renewals. This last quarter that ended just a few weeks ago, we had over 200, right? So again, the velocity and scale of the business obviously is now reflected in how much more we have to look at that long game. I think you're so spot on because it's kind of like I mentioned experimentation, right? It's all experimentation right now. Let's go figure out how we can use these tools. That's the first wave we're in right now. The second wave is like when finance shows up and says, okay, now what are we doing? And I think we're right there, right at that cusp for companies now. Okay, you've spent a year kind of doing this token maxing and spending all these, spending your budget on these things. What do you have to show for it? Like, how does this meaningfully impact top line, bottom line? And how do we have some evidence of value that we arm our champions with? Period. Right. That's kind of what we're doing. And it's a lot of work because guess what? It's moving fast. I mean, our teams are kind of spread thin because we were a little slow to the game in terms of getting the go-to-market teams like built out. Maybe arguably should have been a year ago. But I think that's kind of the fun part of this is like we're operationalizing how we're going to market from our side, from Cursor, right? In terms of that long game, figuring out kind of the functional roles, but also making sure that we're building kind of the foundation, the playbooks, the repeatability, right? And kind of removing a little bit of this, like, everyone loves a hero. There's a little bit of hero culture that kind of naturally exists in this space, only because it's like so fast moving. And, even the way we build products, for example, it's like a one-person team because we're dog fooding our own stuff. Amazing, right? Versus like these groups of product managers and developers that take weeks and months to go build the thing. So like, I think the way we have to reimagine go to market, same thing. How do we operate in this kind of environment where the ground underneath us is changing so quickly, but also kind of counterbalance with what you just said a few minutes ago, John, which is like the more things change, the more they stay the same. But
one
we
thing
have a
that's
champion. Yeah. Go
yeah,
on.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, do we have a champion? Like, I'm asking the teams, who's our champion? Well, it's this person. Who's our EB? Oh, it's this person in procurement. Are you sure it's that person in procurement? Like, why? Well, it's because we're negotiating the contract with them. So, yeah, you're smirking. But again, just the basics around, hey, what is the pain? What is the business problem that they're solving? And have we captured meaningful evidence that we are solving that pain for them?
One
If
of
we
the
haven't,
things I'm
we got
one of
work
the
to do.
things I'm struggling with in current resourcing is thinking about this. As you said, there's much more. Like for years, we were telling reps, don't do the POVs. There's enough evidence out there. And that's not really realistic now. And so you're saying we got to kind of we got to get them in the exploratory phase. What is that doing to your resources that have to support? Do you just let them go rogue and explore on their own, or do you got to have resources to guide them through it? What's that doing to budgets? What's it doing to headcount? What's it like? If we did that at Force Management, we had to have a bunch of new people there to guide people. That's a whole nother headcount problem
Right.
or challenge.
Right.
How does that showing up for you?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're in build out mode, John. So it's as hire as fast as we can to build just the foundation right now because we have, I guess I can share some like rough numbers. We have thousands of enterprise customers, and my team right now is about 35 people globally, right?
That's
So it's kind
amazing.
of crazy. Yeah, and we're talking hundreds of millions in obviously renewable ARR that we have to kind of focus on in the near term, right? So do the math. It's a lot at stake.
You
It's
got to
high
do the
stake.
renewable ARR. You got to
Yeah,
then you got to do the exploratory on the new stuff with
right.
35 people.
Right. So the problem statement is, yeah, there's no way we have enough human beings. So guess what? I mean, we have to leverage tooling. We have to leverage the things that are going to give us as much signal as proactive signal to say, hey, John, watch out. This customer, whatever signal we're looking for, maybe they're a competitor shows like an increase usage across their development teams, or hey, our usage has dropped off, or hey, we've lost engagement because guess what? Our champion just got pushed into another team or just left the company. All the factors that, again, should be very proactive signals. And I call it early warning detection. How do we build those systems? Number one. And then number two, what actionable things can we do to react when we get those proactive signals, right? That's kind of the work in order to like build consistency and scale. So we're trying to do that now. The other thing too is, when you hire great people, they can kind of do many things and
Good
do the
point.
work of many people sometimes, especially in kind of like, these like crunch times. So it's really important as a leader to like galvanize the team around, hey, here's the mission, here's the charter, here's the why. Are you with me? And
So
like, here's the
good.
thing that we're going after. And like, I actually learned that from John. Like, that's what galvanizes teams to go and like kind of hustle through and, have the grit to kind of endure some like pretty tough times and hopefully come out of it, right, in a better place. So we have to ramp hiring So like anyone listening to this, like we are hiring the best people we can. And if you want to do the best work of your career, like talk to me. But we're
It
also trying to
sounds like
figure
if
out,
I'm going to go there, I got to be talk a little bit more about like what would fit for you. I got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I got to probably be comfortable with grabbing a bucket of water. You know, we used to say at the force management in the early days when we used to bind our frameworks. You remember you'd get them?
yeah,
Force management would be binding. The term was on the wall. We had everybody binds. Like
I
if we
love
had
it.
we had to put 100 of these things together, everybody would bind.
That's the
But
part.
that's
Yeah.
a certain mentality that you got to be ready to do that. You got to be comfortable with ambiguity and high growth. What else would you say for
Yeah.
people that want to reach out to you?
Yeah. I mean, people who have high agency, like the desire to go and not only do the best for themselves and have a high bar, but kind of do the best thing for your teammate, right? And for the person sitting next to you and standing next to you, like that's super important. But that agency comes as a function of, hey, if you see a problem, it's one of our values, like go do the thing to go fix the problem, right? Like you're empowered to do it. And again, that was before my time here, but like this is kind of root and kind of core to what Cursor is. I think the other thing too is fully understanding that sometimes you are taking a slightly, step down in maybe the roles you're used to in order to come here. But guess what? There's going to be so much more headroom, right? Like my team's going to, 6x from the number I just told you, right? And like with that comes opportunity. So like people sometimes have to take a little bit of a, hey, slightly different scoped role, knowing that in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, hey, I can actually step into this like much bigger role, right? And have a much bigger impact because I think the people I'm also looking for want to make a difference, right? What else would I say? I think again, the intellectual curiosity that is huge, and that should permeate every role here, right? Because you have to
Yeah,
seek to
for sure.
understand. Yeah, and it's
I've
something
heard you,
that's
Johnny, say a million times to people, and I want to have you phrase it, but like, don't worry about the titles. What do you know? You have a pretty
Don't
specific
confuse
advice.
position with opportunity. I've seen
That's
it so
it.
many times where, people call me, hey, can you help me? I'm looking at a couple opportunities. And then they tell me about the two opportunities. One has a bigger title and the opportunity is terrible. And the other one has a big opportunity and the title's like, middle of the road. And I tell them, look, go to the opportunity because the opportunity, it's going to grow. And if you're good and you're performing, you're gonna grow with the company. You're gonna have a great time. You're gonna be surrounded by great people. And next thing you know, you look back 2 years from now and you're in a much bigger title in a great opportunity. If you take the title, yeah, you got a big title, opportunity's going nowhere. You're not going to be around great people. And 2 years from now, you're going to look back and say, I made a big mistake. And you're going to the next one. And you're going to go to the next big title with no opportunity. So don't confuse position with opportunity. And at Cursor, it's a giant opportunity.
While we're on the phone, while we're recording, bro,
yeah.
while we're recording, SpaceX and Cursor are doing a
Oh
deal.
boy.
And I'm not sure, Johnny and I sure didn't know about it. I'm sure Brian probably knew about it, but a couple of days later, Johnny, it gets announced that there's going to be an option to purchase. And so sounds like just an incredible environment there. So that's a little plug. If they want to, we got more to talk about, but if they want to reach out, what's the best way if I'm interested in Cursor? What's the best way right now? Because stuff's flying.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, like if you want to explore a possible role here, just send me a message on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn's kind of exploded already, but like I am combing through it. That's the obvious one, whatever the plug here is for Sung
Well,
Parks. Like,
Yeah, we'll get it.
We'll put your
yeah,
LinkedIn in the show
We'll
notes.
get it.
oh, perfect. Yeah, and then beyond that, like we're almost building a who's who of go to market
Mhm.
leaders here.
Yeah.
It's like every week we've got, oh wow, that person, and I'm also interviewing quite a bit. So if you want to work with the best and brightest, also just take a look on LinkedIn and see who's here that you might know because we're all connected. One or two people removed, right? The longer I do this, the world seems much smaller, right? Someone through at least one other person. So
Yes.
I would highly recommend, show some PG skills, do a little research, and go do some outreach to the
Amen.
person that you want to land the job with because it means a lot here. Um, I think the last thing I'll say is, as far as Cursor and kind of the market, and you kind of mentioned SpaceX, I'm not really supposed to talk about it, but this is a front row seat to
Yeah.
arguably the most, I don't know, the most interesting for sure, but like the biggest generational shift in like technology since probably the cloud, right? And that was a long time ago. I'm an old
Definitely.
man,
Yeah.
right? So like if you want a front row seat for that, then like come check it out because the things that you get to see, I've been here just a few months. It's just again, the technical term is bonkers. It just makes no sense.
That's a
But
technical term?
it's a technical term, John. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
I'm gonna put bonkers in the technical section of the
Man,
dictionary.
I feel technical because people call me bonkers all the time, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
So,
Johnny Mac,
son,
do you remember? Wait, just one
okay,
quick
go
thing
ahead.
before you. Yeah. Do you remember? This was at Blade Logic. I was actually thinking about this the other day. You had just joined. I had, that was my first pre-sales job, right? We were called application engineers, but I was working with, Damon and like Devakar and those guys.
Yeah.
You had just joined and you like reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got this like candidate or someone." Like it wasn't clear who it was. And you're like, "Hey, Sung, I heard you give a good demo. Do you mind getting on this call and like doing this demo for me?" But I was like, a little nervous. I'll say it politically correct. I was like, what the hell? Like new guy here, new sales leader. I haven't even met him yet. He wants me to do a demo. And the demo was weird because like there was a third person on that was like off camera or whatever it was. And then it was just you talking a little bit, but me just going through the standard Blade Logic demo. And then at some point I realized like, hey, this feels like I'm just being tested. Like, hey, can Sung actually do a good demo or not? And I always wanted to ask you, like, what the context of that was. It could have been a candidate that you just wanted to maybe.
If it was
Well, no,
nefarious, it was him.
we were gonna find out if you were good soon enough anyway. So
Yeah,
might as well
fair.
find out right now.
Yeah, but I distinctly remember that because
Yeah.
I was about to have my first kid, and my wife had stopped working, and I was like, man, I can't screw this up no matter what. And I think it was just kind of that thing that I'm also looking for people who like not operate out of a position of fear. It's because they have so much that they need to do and are capable of doing. And sometimes you have to operate from a position of a little bit of uncertainty, have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, right? And like want to do the best work that you can. And like, I'm looking for that. I know it's hard to kind of
And
like
also
discern that.
because you can always get better. And you want
Yeah.
people that always realize I can always learn more. I can always increase my skill set. The minute that, I've seen people that think that they know everything, they don't need to be coached anymore. I already got all the skills. That's the time for them to go because companies, especially like a Cursor, are moving so fast. Somebody that you see at this stage, you're going to see people 2 years from now, you're going to go, that guy's a dinosaur. Like he has not changed. The company's changed, the market's changed, products changed, messaging's changed, customers have changed. And this guy hasn't changed. He looked good at this in 2026, and in 2028, he looks like a dinosaur.
You guys, you know what I'm calling this right now? I'm calling it sunrise. In my own company, I'm calling it sunrise versus sunset. If you are somebody that gets motivated by the sunrise, Cursor's the company for you. If you get motivated by, and I'm not, there's no judgments. It's like if you're on the tail end of your career and you're looking for a place to land and you got, you want to get back and you want to, okay, I call that sunset and there's nothing wrong with it. But when you try to put a sunset person in a sunrise place, bad things happen. Does it make
Yeah,
sense? It's
yeah.
not. And by the way, for you all listening out there, do your pre-qualification for yourself that says, if this is am I being honest with myself? Am I willing to go? And like when I say sunrise, I mean like dark 30, like 5:30 in the morning and getting motivated, swinging my legs off it's not whether this is important for me. It's
Just so you
not
know,
whether or not you,
dark 30 is not 5:30.
yeah, it
Just so you
is.
know.
Oh,
Okay.
dark 30 is 5:30. Don't
All
make me
right.
come over there.
All right.
Listen, listen. So it's not that you can't do it. Please listen. It's will it give you energy now? Because there's a lot of people are listening to this going, I can do this. I did it with Song back in the day. We can do this. And Song, you look young as heck, but you've been doing this a while and you're
Yeah.
still a sunrise guy. And
Yeah.
so just being honest with yourself and saying, is this type of thing going to give me energy or is it going to take the energy away from me? And there's no judgment. But I
Right.
hear a lot of people now. I'm going to get phone calls. Can you get me into Cursor? Can you call Sung? Can you? That's the first question I'm probably going to ask them. Are you
That's the wrong,
guys or
you don't
something?
call Kaplan. If you want to get in, you call Sung or call somebody around
Yeah.
Sung.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Sung.
Yeah.
So typically you've been in quarterly business reviews and forecast sessions, mainly forecast sessions, because you've been basically on the go-to-market side of things. And
Yes.
now, even a couple of years ago, you wouldn't find a lot of client success or customer
Oh,
support
yeah.
people in forecast sessions. But I gotta
Never.
ask,
Yeah.
I'm certain that you're finding yourself in these forecast sessions these days.
Well, it's worse than that. Um, McCarthy's asked me to basically call a renewals a churn number. I have to forecast a number to him, John. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
not even
rightfully
attending the
so.
session.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree with them. I'd
Yeah.
have you do the same thing.
Yeah. And it's I mean, think about it almost as a parallel forecast in a way, because he doesn't want me to care about expansion or any of the other stuff. Like, of the renewable available to renew dollars, how much of that can we count on, right? Because we have to protect the base.
Okay, so he's doing
Yeah.
the renewal and he's looking at the churn, but he's not asking you to forecast for the current quarter of upside business from
Well,
the
so
existing
we'll probably
customers.
eventually get there. We're just trying to get our heads wrapped around, hey, we've
Gotcha.
got this
Yeah, I'm
big pool
certain
of
that's
money.
coming. So you better
Yeah,
get
how
ready
much
for
is
that.
coming? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the nature of our business is sometimes the renewals are going to be 2x, 4x, 5x, 10x what the
Mhm.
original land was, right? Because they're consuming way more. And like, we've changed pricing models in kind of its simplest terms. But yeah, back to the forecasting and kind of the QBRs. I think because of our nature and the roles that we play, again, if we're doing our jobs right, we're going to have so many data points and so many ways to qualify in and out expansion opportunities, right? Because
Mhm.
customers aren't going to buy unless they're happy and already getting some type of value, period. And remember what I said, consumption pricing is almost like a referendum on, hey, are we getting value out of this thing that we're paying for? And if we're not, bye bye, we'll go do something else. So I think it really forces, us to stay on top of the value game, number one. And number two, I think there's also this ability for us to provide all the data points that kind of either support or refute whether or not something should be called, right? Like, Carlos loved this, I mean, about him, because he would always come to me. He's like, hey, Sung, you know, tell me, like, tell me the truth. Like, is this a real opportunity or not? And he would
Right.
always use me as kind of the foil for, hey, calling a little BS on a sales leader or a rep for calling something.
Right.
It's like, well, what
Right.
about these things that we know? And I think that's the way that I've operated always. And it's the way that we should continue to operate, especially in CS, because again, we're going to have access to information that should really help from a qualification perspective.
Hey, I want to talk about one or
Yeah.
two other things. So Johnny touched on this a little bit on the handoff, right? Because you got to the customer has to realize value. So when you're handing off from the salesperson, how do you ensure that your CS people are getting all the relevant information that they need to make sure that the customer realizes the value that they intended to realize?
Yeah. It's easy to say these words, really
Yeah.
hard to execute,
Mhm.
but we have to have in post sales and CS a really firm understanding of why they bought and what outcomes that, well, the EB wants, right? And then also, what wins does a champion get out of this? Even if you just root on those like three things, PBOs, right? Like, what does the EB care about and what does the champion actually want in terms of the win? 99% of the work is almost done, right? But it's really hard to go and capture those things, because oftentimes, unless you're getting pulled into the POC or the pilot or the validation event to really understand, hey, these are the requirements and here are the things that you're potentially, making the promise of delivering on, it just always gets lost in the shuffle. And I think even after you land, you may not have access to the information to kind of even get a status on, hey, did those PBOs actually happen or did those outcomes meaningfully happen? So that's why I say it's really hard to do. It's easy in theory. Hey, you made some promises and go help achieve these business outcomes. And then we're going to capture evidence of whether we've achieved them in some time window and time frame, give it to our champion, show the EB, and validate that, hey, we have delivered value, but also we've earned the right to go and get this renewal or get more business, right? And I do think that that whole end to end like handoff, I hate the word because it's a transition, right? Because are we really
Right,
handing
right.
off, and does the AE and the, pre-sales or the field engineer here at Cursor, like, do they stop engaging with the customer? Absolutely not. We're still engaging to, cultivate and curate the champion relationships, the EB relationships, making sure that we, provide, because the customer doesn't care who the role and what your title is. They're engaging with a company, right?
Yes,
And it's like one company. Do you know what I mean?
yes.
Versus like,
Well, here's the danger, right, son? It could be a bot. Let's think about it's all
True.
about the customer experience. Seriously. If I could, I don't care who does it. If I could get somebody, I hate a handoff.
mm,
So that's number one. Every conversation around user experience or customer experience is going to encapsulate what we talked about in the beginning, has to be where we land in the end. And if there's two different organizations using two different languages, doing things differently, that experience is going to lead to a high probability of that not being the same thing. What I signed up for is not what I got. So again, Song, you know where I'm going with this. The more things change, the more they stay the same. But that need for common language that maybe we could get away with is, hey, we sold it this way and this was the promise or the certainty,
right.
now has to be in the actual, you got to deliver all the way through.
The execution and the proof,
Yeah.
right? And only when you have that, that proof point, that case study,
Yeah.
right? Then you've achieved it, right? And again, like, it's the work, right? Because I don't think we're all consistently operating that way here yet. We will, but I think it's even more important we do it because, again, the market's fast changing, competitive, threat is massive, right? Switching cost is generally very low. And I do think that there's an opportunity for us to, again, be the moat in terms of how we engage, how we
I love
sell.
that.
And it comes back to the basics all the time. Like, I've been doing this and it almost feels like it's come full circle, right? It's like all the
Right.
stuff I learned at Blade Logic,
Yeah.
it's like never kind of been far from the truth,
Yeah.
right? It's always pain. There's someone who cares about that pain, and there's someone who's going to meaningfully spend some money to go solve that pain. And
Mhm.
there's someone who's going to sell on your behalf when you're not in the room and has a win and has influence, like all those things. It's like the same,
It
20
is.
Yeah.
years later. And I
It's
think
amazing,
that's
right?
the thing.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to do the the sell on that, but like, that's fundamentally what it is. And I think the new sellers of today, the new go-to-market professionals, they could do a lot to just go back a little bit and kind of understand the basics and where we came from and apply that, because you'd be surprised how little, I think, capture there is in terms of some of those like key foundational concepts. And I think that can go a long way in terms of shortening some of um the delta, I'll say, in terms of, being, just any old seller and being, elite,
I agree.
being any old SE or CS, professional and being elite.
Hey, before we let Sung go, Johnny, can
Yeah.
can we take a second and just because we touched on a little bit, and it's okay if it's not appropriate for this conversation, but I'd like to know, can you educate us a little bit, Sung, on we're starting to hear some drums in the forest. Like we went from subscription to consumption, and now we're hearing outcome-based
Outcome.
pricing. So I'm hearing
Yeah.
this boom, 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 and it's getting louder and louder and louder. Can you just kind of, for the audience, can you just kind of tell us where you think that is? What does it mean, and where you think it is?
Wow. Really early to tell. I mean, I think customers love the idea. Why am I, especially let's say in our space, why am I paying for all these tokens when I'm just paying for the thing that's going to deliver some outcome? Why don't I just pay for the outcome? Unfortunately, I think outcomes for customers are going to be wildly different, right? So it's going to be hard to kind of have a normalized, hey, here's an outcome for, a fintech company versus, a healthcare company versus, a government like DoD, right? Like, they're going to have very wildly different outcomes and measures. I think because their maturity, where they sit in the maturity curve, is also going to be very different because it's largely dependent on the people they have, the process, what tools they're using, how well they do the change management and kind of transform. That's also going to be a huge factor. And I do think that, consumption-based pricing is kind of going to be here for a bit, only because it does, again, it's the shining the light, right? It does expose whether or not you're delivering value. I think most companies are still going to default to that, or customers, right, are going to default to that. But I don't know. Outcome-based sounds like a great thing in theory. I think it's just going to be a very hard thing to execute, especially in our space. At least for now.
Yeah.
It's funny. We had a customer advisory board dinner. I was sitting next to a crypto company customer, and he was espousing. It's like, hey, you guys are doing your pricing all wrong. You should do outcome-based pricing. I was like, well, how would you measure that? And then we had other customers, and they're like, yeah, it sounds great in theory, but really hard to do, because guess what? Your outcomes are going to cost very different than mine, and it'd be really hard for someone like Cursor to kind of normalize that. Now, there are probably much smarter people than me figuring that thing out. It's just my current view of the situation.
But it's still drums in for right now. It's
totally.
the drums in the forest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like
for
that.
sure. Yeah,
Johnny, any other point on that?
Well, I wrote down 3 things and Song picked 2 of them, people and process, and I wrote product life cycles, because if you're a gaming company, you got to get a new game out in like 6 months. That's one thing. If you're building an airplane, that's a whole nother thing. You want outcome to be based upon me doing a new wing design. That could take 1.5 years, right?
Mm.
But I think what really is going to happen, it's going to be outcomes. It's going to be like micro outcomes based upon your product, and these little micro outcomes that you have to pay for. I think but it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
It changes from product to product. It changes from company to company, changes from process to process. And do you have
By the way,
do
those
you have the
micro
right people? Do I really want to count on your people to make the outcome happen quickly so I could get paid? I don't know. Seong Park,
Woo!
Yes.
as awesome
Masterclass.
as ever.
Oh wow, flattered.
Looking good too, brother. Looking
Thank you,
good.
thank you.
Looks
Appreciate
young
it.
as hell, Johnny.
Hey, what?
He looks
Yeah.
young as hell.
He's got a fresh haircut. Looks like he's in good shape.
Yeah,
Taking care of
buddy.
himself.
Thinning out a little bit. I mean, I
I
have
don't
4
know about
kids.
that. I'll take that. So
Oh,
Kaplan,
really?
definitely take it if you
Don't
want to
you?
trade with Cap.
That's unkind. There's no reason for you to come over to my side of the room with that comment.
All right. Sorry about
Out
that.
of love.
Thank you, Seong Park.
Thank you.
Thank you, John Kaplan. Thanks to everyone for listening to another episode of the Revenue Builders Podcast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. This show is brought to you by Force Management, where we help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Check out forcemanagement.com for more information.